Welcome back to Academic Biology. This is Mr. Adolph, and we're going to get into the next type of genetics problem, which deals with blood types. And that's actually a type of codominance problem, which we did in the last section. So let's go back and talk about that for a moment. So with genetics, there are things called alleles, and alleles are the different versions of a trait, and you get one from each parent, one from the mom, one from the dad. And there are a couple different scenarios in which those alleles might function. In some scenarios, there could be something called complete dominance. And in that scenario, one allele is dominant to the other. So, for example, let's say we're talking about pea plants and height. Big T is dominant to little t. So, if you have the heterozygous big T, little t, that would be a tall plant because the big T dominates the little t. And the only way you're going to have the recessive allele present is if both are recessive. So, little t would be the only option. In incomplete and codominance, that is not the case. Neither allele is dominant to the other. So when you have the heterozygous version, you're going to get some third option. So for example, with incomplete dominance, you're going to get a new phenotype. So for example, if we're talking about black and white as the two possibilities, let's say B is going to be black and W is going to be white. BW would be gray, some third new option somewhere in between the other two. In codominance, both black and white are still going to be there, but when it's BW, it's going to be like black and white striped. So it's not a third new option, it's a third option in which the other two options are both present. So, you can think of any scenario in nature where there's polka dots or multiple colors in one thing. And now today we're going to talk about blood type. And blood type is an example of codominance because you could have A blood type, B blood type, or AB. You can have both. And we'll talk more about that now. So you guys have probably heard the term blood type before. You might even know your blood type. If you take a look over here, you can see there's a little graph, and in this chart, I should say, you can see the different blood types and the percentages of the population that have it. So as you can see, there's 4 blood types: A, B, AB, and O. And then you can also have a plus or minus, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through. But the most common blood type is going to be O, and then A is going to be right after that, and then it'll be B, and then AB is the least common by a lot, actually. So what does it mean to be A, B, or O? Well, what it means is it has to do with a protein that's going to be found on the outside of your red blood cells. So let's talk a little bit about blood. Now, blood is an extremely important part of a living organism. It's what carries all the nutrients around the body, but it's also what carries oxygen. And we did a whole unit on cell respiration, and as you know, your cells need oxygen to make energy. So if those cells don't have available oxygen, they stop functioning, that ATP synthase stops spinning, and the cells stop making ATP and the cells die. So the red blood cells are the part of your blood which carry oxygen, and that's the part of your blood which deals with blood type. Now, you also have white blood cells, and that's what fights off infection. That's your immune system. But our red blood cells are the ones that we're talking about today, and they only have one job, and that job is to carry oxygen. Now, they have these things on the outside of them called antigens. Now, an antigen is just a protein on the outside of the red blood cell. It's like wearing a uniform. Your body can identify its own blood cells by having the right antigen on the outside. So human blood type is really determined by whether or not you have the A antigen or the B antigen, or both, or neither. So let's take a look here at our options. So if you take a look up here, you can see I drew 4 red blood cells. I have one red blood cell here, which is A. I have one here, which is B. I have AB, and I have O. Now, all 4 of these red blood cells have the same exact job. They carry oxygen. That's it. That's all they do. That and carbon dioxide, right? They transport oxygen to the cells, and they carry the carbon dioxide back to the lungs to get reoxygenated. Now, on the outside of these, you can see there's a couple different options. On this one, I have these little green boxes. That represents the A antigen. That's the protein on the outside of the red blood cell, which makes it A. B blood has the B antigen on the outside. And then AB is going to have both, and then O is going to have neither. Now, which one of these is going to work the best? The answer to that question is they all work the same. The only thing that these antigens do is they allow us to identify our own red blood cells. So, for example, if I have A-type blood and you tried to give me B-type blood as a blood transfusion, my body would recognize that it's B because of these antigens on the outside, and my body would attack it. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So there's two terms. There's antigen and antibody. The antigen is the protein that is on the cell. So think of that as the uniform of your red blood cells. If you have A-type blood, you have the A antigen. If you have B-type blood, you have the B antigen. If you have AB blood, you have both antigens. And if you have O blood, that means you have neither antigen. The antibody is that's what your body actually produces to fight off the other type of blood cells. So it's actually going to be in the plasma of your blood, which is the liquid part of your blood. And its job is to prevent foreign particles. Now, you may have heard the term antibody a lot lately. Your body makes antibodies against anything that is invading. So, for example, if you've ever heard of like mononucleosis, that's a pretty common illness that people get. Your body produces antibodies to fight it off. That's why if you get mono, you can't get it again. Once you get it, your body recognizes it every other time it gets in because it makes antibodies. Well, the virus that everybody's talking about right now is the coronavirus, and we don't really know 100% sure whether or not your body produces antibodies and that it will fight it off forever, but we're hoping that's the case. But an antibody is what your body produces to fight off foreign particles. So in the case of the coronavirus, hopefully your body's producing antibodies if you get exposed. Let's talk a little bit more about blood, though. So here's the 4 blood types on this chart. This chart's going to be very helpful to you in this section. There's 4 possible blood types, A, B, AB, and O. The genotypes which produce that blood type, this is where things get a little weird. Okay, so you can use blood type to determine whether or not someone's parent is, if they have a mix up at the hospital and babies get mixed up, they can use blood types to figure out whose baby is whose. And that's because of these genotypes. So this is where things get a little weird. So for A-type blood and B-type blood, there's actually 2 possible genotypes. AA, so we're going to use the I, the letter I. Think of the I as the actual allele, and then the I can have an A attached to it, a B attached to it, or nothing attached to it. And that's the antigen on the outside of the red blood cell. So for blood type A, you can have IAIA or IAI. Either one will give you blood type A. The same thing is true for B blood type. You can have IBIB or IBI. In the case of both of these, if it's just one letter, it overpowers the empty I and it becomes that blood type. If you're blood type AB, it's going to be IAIB. There's only one option. And O-type blood is going to be just II. Now, in terms of the antigen, so this is the uniform that the cell is wearing. So for A-type blood has the A antigen, and it has the B antibody. And what that means is if you were to try to give this person with A-type blood B blood as a blood transfusion, their B antibodies are going to attack that B blood cell. And what it actually does is it sticks to it. The antibody is a little molecule, and it sticks to the red blood cell, and it kind of tags it as being one that doesn't belong there. And then what ends up happening is it actually is sticky, and it sticks to other red blood cells, so it causes a clump. The blood starts to clump up, and then obviously that would be a big problem. If your blood clumps up, it can't flow. It could be deadly. So an A-type blood is going to be able to get blood. So who can they receive blood from? Well, A-type blood can get it from A because it A antigens, and it can also get it from O-type blood because O has no antigens on it. So think of O blood as like a player without a uniform. You don't even know what team they're on. They can go on either side. So O blood can go to anybody. That's why O is called the universal donor, because it doesn't have any antigens. So the B antibody won't be able to pick it up. B-type blood has the B antigen and the A antibody. So that could take B-type blood because it has the antigen, or O. So if you gave this person A-type blood, the A antibodies would fight it off. AB blood is actually called the universal acceptor because it has no antibodies. So it doesn't have any defense system against A and B blood. So what that means is this person can take anybody's blood. It could take AB, A, B, or O because there's no antibodies. It's like imagine a net without a goalie. And then finally, O-type blood, that can take only O because it has both antibodies. So O-type blood has no antigens. So if you gave someone with O-type blood either A, B, or AB blood, the antibodies would attach to it and fight it. So O-type blood is very kind because it's the universal donor. It can be given to anybody, but only can receive O. Let's try a problem. let's see how we do with this. So here's the problem here. Suppose a father of blood type A and a mother of blood type B have a child with blood type O. What are the blood types of other children that they could have, of other subsequent children? Let's try this out. Let's see if we can figure this out together. Okay, so I have a father with A-type blood and a mother with B-type blood, and they have a child with O-type blood. So let's go with first the father. The father's A-type blood, which means he could be IA or IAI. And then I have a mother who has B-type blood, so she could be IB or IBI. Now, here's why this problem is a little bit difficult. How do you know? How do you know which one it is? Because both of them could give you A. It doesn't say which one it is, but it does tell you something very important. It tells you that they have a child with O-type blood. There's only one option for O-type blood, and that would be II. So, just with this one bit of information, we've just figured it out. Because is there any way that this mother or this father with A-type blood could ever have this child? The answer to that question is no, because it has to donate one eye. So this parent has to be IAI. The same thing is true for this parent. It would have to be IBI, because it would have to have donated the O to make that O-type blood. This parent could never have a child with O-type blood, and this parent can never have a child with O-type blood. Now, if I didn't tell you that, let's say I didn't tell you that they had a child with O-type blood, you wouldn't be able to figure it out. So these problems, you have to have that information. So let's plug in our Punnett square. So we know the father is IAI. We know the mother is IBI. So when we fill in our Punnett square, we get IA and IB for this one. We get IBI for this one. We get IA for this one, and then we get II for this one. So the question says, what are the other possible blood types that these parents could have? The answer would be, I'll write it down here, we would have 25% A, 25% B, 25% AB, and 25%. Geez, I should do this a little bit better. 25% O. And that's our answer. 25% of each of those. And that's how you do a blood type problem. So let's see how you guys do when you try out the problems. Let me know if you have any questions. Please email me.